Welcome back to Guns 101, our personal welcome message to new gun owners. It's brought to you by the Self-Defense Radio Network. I'm Rob Morse from Self-Defense Gun Stories. My partners are Amanda Suffolk from Eye on the Target Radio. The guy behind the scenes there doing the heavy technical lifting is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. We're lucky to have Rob Pincus with us from the Personal Defense Network. Robert, we've asked everybody to take a bite at storage and safety of guns in the home, particularly for brand new gun owners. What can you help us with?
Well, I think it's incredibly important that all brand new gun owners realize that they have now increased risk in some ways inside of their home. Obviously, as a Second Amendment rights advocate, as a personal defense educator, as a defensive shooting educator for decades now, I'm a strong advocate of people being prepared to defend themselves with all the tools that they're capable of using responsibly. That obviously includes firearms, but we do have to be honest about the risks that now exist inside of your home to you and everyone else there in the case that you never had a firearm before. So when we talk about storage, or I'm going to talk about staging, and I'm going to differentiate between the two. Remember that one of the most important responsibilities you have as a new gun owner is to make sure that you do the things you can to mitigate the likelihood of you or anyone else being wrongfully injured. Now, we use terms like negligent, we use terms like incidental. What's important to understand here is we're talking about accidents. We're talking about unintended consequences. And the technical terms inside of the gun world for all of this really revolve around, in many cases, a defense of our Second Amendment rights. And what I want to do for a minute is put that aside. I want to talk to you very directly about the responsibility you have and about the risks that now have entered your home without any regard for the politics of it, because it's really important that we put that aside. Regardless of whether or not someone thinks that we should all have free access to firearms, the Second Amendment says that we do. And I think that's a good thing as long as we get educated and we do our part to meet the responsibility. So what kind of risks am I talking about? Well, obviously, this is a mechanical device. And in some cases, some firearms, I would say, definitely are complicated devices. Some are more simple, but they're all complex. They all have multiple things that have to be done to keep them working, to get them working, and to be able to use them efficiently. And if you aren't well educated in all of those steps and well practiced so that you've developed almost subconscious habits in the manipulation and use of your firearm, you could cause an accident. You could have an accident. You could be, in that case, negligent. So when we look at the types of firearms that I recommend for personal defense, and this is one of those types, it's called a modern striker-fired gun. And I particularly recommend that you look for a firearm, and whether you have one of these or not, really, it may be too late for that, but if you have one of these, you're better off. These types of firearms have no extra levers or buttons which need to be pushed, pulled, leaned on, whatever, held down, that wouldn't otherwise be pushed, held, or leaned on at the bare minimum of firearms use. So this firearm in particular, really, all you need to know about this is that the slidey part up top, the slide, moves all the way back, and then it comes all the way forward. And that means the gun is cycling properly. The trigger, this part right here, needs to be moved all the way back. That will set the gun off if it's loaded, and then it needs to come all the way back forward. Now, one of the things that you'll see in all of these videos is that whoever's demonstrating things to you will probably show you that the gun is empty and that there's no magazine in the gun, things like that. My fear is that you aren't even educated enough to really know what it is I'm showing you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this gun down, and I'm going to pick up this gun. This gun is called a SIRT pistol, S-I-R-T, and it's just a laser training pistol. When I pull this trigger, there is a laser light that will come on the front if there are batteries in, if it's charged and ready to go. This one, I have it turned off because it's just very distracting when I point this at the camera. So this is the one that I use for video stuff. Now, I can do a lot of good training and practice with this gun, and the reason I wanted to show you the other one first is the slide part doesn't move on this, so this red top part doesn't move. But let's talk about what is important. What is important is that I know only to put my finger anywhere near this trigger when I'm going to shoot. That's the one mechanical piece that I have to move. And that there's a little button over here that will release the magazine if I need the gun to be unloaded. And those are really the only two parts of this gun, other than that slide, that I need to worry about. And that's as simple as you want it to be. So that the first step of responsibility is knowing all the levers and all the buttons and all the moving parts on your gun that you're going to need to know. After that, we're going to talk about access control, because that's the next biggest possible point of someone getting hurt inadvertently with a firearm. So the first piece here is you knowing how to use your gun and you getting practice in using it safely. The second piece is making sure that no one else can access your gun when it's not in your direct control. And that's going to mean more than just hiding. Now, if you live and people don't come over to your house, or when they do, you're in their immediate, you're right there with them. They're with you as a human being. They're not unaccounted for. They're not wandering the house. They're not coming in to, fix something or deliver a package when you're away. It's truly just you and any house guest you might have. Then maybe hiding a gun would be okay. For the most part, the overwhelming majority of people don't live in that kind of isolation. They have family members, and especially if you bought a gun because of the coronavirus situation, you could very well be locked down in a stay-at-home with a house full of people who are bored potentially and curious about what's in this closet or what's over here, especially if they're kids. So I'm going to talk about something called a quick access safe. And that is a safe that is designed to prevent unauthorized access from the gun. Really doesn't have anything to do with theft, right? If somebody breaks in, kicks your door down, or breaks through your window and takes this, they can run away with it and pry this open later. But your kids aren't likely to be able to get into this unless they know the code. And the cool thing here is that when it's locked, you can relatively quickly come in here and get this open and get access to your firearm or any other defensive tools inside it. So I think those are the two biggest things. And we can certainly go into more detail about a lot of that, but I think those are the two biggest things any new gun owner needs to know: how to use their gun and how to prevent unauthorized access.
When the quarantine is over, people can take classes and get brushed up on that. What resources are they available until those classes can happen, where there's several people sitting together side by side?
Well, again, I know these videos are aimed specifically at a group of people who've run out and bought a gun, and you've got it now. But I want to say first, you are now a gun owner, right? And any gun owner who's transferring, handing, loaning, selling, whatever, a gun to another person, that's another point of responsibility. So hopefully the first resource that you have as a new gun owner is the person who gun, the person who owned you the gun. And hopefully they knew enough about it and cared enough about their responsibility as a gun owner to have taught you the basics of how the gun works. If you bought a new gun, there's going to be a manual in with the gun that I definitely suggest you read. It's not like the instructions that come with new furniture or something you just throw away and then maybe need to go find later. I want you to look at that manual. So the manual with a new gun or with a used gun that comes in the manual, that's going to be a good. Obviously, you're watching this video. Chances are you can go into a search engine, go into YouTube, and put in the exact model and name of your gun, and there'll be, especially if it's a popular gun, you're going to see a lot of videos. What you're looking for is basic operations, and especially if you can find one from the manufacturer. While it may not be, what you would learn in a high-speed class, from somebody who's teaching just defensive-oriented skills, the basic manipulations of the gun, the basic safe handling of the gun, I can't think of a better source than the actual manufacturer who put it together. So a lot of manufacturers have some great and very thorough manipulation and handling videos. As for the second part, as for storage, and let's now differentiate between staging and storage. If I wanted to store the gun, I have a 5-year-old in the house with me. If I wanted to store a gun, I could, and again, this is the real gun and it is unloaded, I could take this gun apart and I could actually put this gun in several different pieces in several different places around the house. And then the 5-year-old is not up to putting this gun back together at this time. So I could put this up on one shelf. I could lock this up maybe in a padlock with in the case it came in with a padlock on it or something like that. And I would have no concern about giving her free reign to she's never going to hurt herself with this. Someone else who comes over and whatever we have from parties, we have a few drinks, whatever, somebody else who's quarantining with me, whatever, whoever it is, I'm not worried about that. For storage, that kind of stuff is fine. I can get a big stand-up safe that costs maybe a couple $1,000s and put all my guns in there. And short of a torch and a lot of time, no one's getting in there. The problem is it also takes then a certain amount of time for me to get this gun back together and into a condition where I could use it to defend myself or that 5-year-old, right? So then, of course, I still have to load the gun with the magazine at this point. So that's great for storage, but not for what we call staging. And for staging, again, there are many different options. I showed you one option that was a mechanical safe. This option with a mechanical lock. This option is also a push button, but this one is an electronic lock. So with this one, I enter my code, and you heard it pop open, and then I would have access to whatever was inside it. There's another type of quick access safe. So again, many different types of safes. This one actually has a security cable that can be looped through here, and I can put this around the plumbing, or I can put this around maybe a eyelet that I have, a heavy bolt that I've screwed into something, an anchor somewhere, and that makes it harder for somebody to just grab this and run. So there's a little bit of a theft deterrent there as well. But as far as general resources go, I have to come back to Personal Defense Network. PersonalDefenseNetwork.com has been around since 2005. We published over 100 training DVDs. Millions of them have been distributed throughout the firearms community. We partnered up with some big names in the community to help.
Okay, wait. You're breaking up there, Rob. So hold on. You're breaking up. So let's come back to that for just a second. So folks, brand new shooters, if they're interested, they can go to personaldefensenetwork.com and find a whole library and a whole host of videos and training and knowledge and education. And I know that you do some really good stuff, and you make it very easy for them to have access to that information. So we're going to talk more about that when we come back on another video. So Rob Pincus, personaldefensenetwork.com.